But everything was an infomercial. You remember the Soloflex, right? Infomercial gimmick with Paul E., our friend. The duel between, I've told you that story, right? Obviously.
I don't know what story you're talking about.
The commercials, the dueling commercial revenue between ECW and Smoky Mountain Wrestling in 1995 or whatever it was, when we found out what Paul E's trick was.
No, actually, I don't think you told me this story.
Oh, God damn it. All right, then I apologize for the longtime listeners. But in those days, in television, if you were syndicating your show for the wrestling programs, let's say that everybody's been seeing the local promos, right? That we've been talking about, or that people tweet out, we're coming to Raleigh. In the wrestling show in Raleigh on the local station, or whoever your promotion was, if they had an hour TV show, their deal with the TV station was the station gets some time and we get some time to promote our live events. Well, later on, as you syndicated your show across the country with the 90s, blah, 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 and you weren't running all those fucking towns, and you're trying to get, it didn't have to be a wrestling program, any fucking program, you're trying to get, on more stations. The easiest way to fill up your commercial time and make some revenue was what they called PI spots, per inquiry, 1-800 buy this shit, right? The pocket, if you call 1-800 whatever and buy the Popeel Pocket Fisherman or the Richard Simmons Deal a Meal or whatever the fuck it was, the number that you called was dedicated to that spot that was in that show. So that means that show got credit for selling that Pocket Fisherman. Have I explained this properly, Brian?
Yes, you have. Ron Popeel, another name I forgot about before.
There you go. And instrumental in the Vegematic. But so, when Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Bill Behrens was helping us try to get not only stations we wanted in our area, but he also had the ability to get us on like Channel America and America One, which were networks per se, that basically fed programming to low power and really small independent stations across the United States that had, weak signals, but they were operating television entities, right? Because then you could put these PI spots on, and if somebody called to get the record offer or called to get the product and bought it, you got a little payoff, right? It was per inquiry. And so we were running those spots. But one of the big ones in those days was the Soloflex spot. Remember when everybody wanted to work out in their own home and get in shape, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And Soloflex was such a big ticket item. One of these things cost a couple grand back 30 years ago, whatever it was, that for that spot, if somebody just called up and said, I'm interested in your product, can you send me the demonstrative video and brochure and all this information about it? If somebody just made the step to get the information, made the phone call, then whatever number they called, whatever spot they called from, you got $5. They didn't have to buy anything, right? They just had to call and I want the information, send it to me. So Bill Behrens got us hooked up with that. And, these things at the time, we were making a couple grand a month from the PI spots. And, this had been going on for a year or so. And it was later on in 95. And Behrens happened to be talking to whoever the agent was that, was in charge of the Soloflex spot. He was renewing whatever the fuck, the new spot. And that's when the guy said, yeah, boy, we thought, you'd do as good as that other wrestling show that we're on, but you haven't really. So what's that? He saw that ECW show. He said, well, how good are they doing? Because Bill knew where they were. They're doing the same thing that we were doing, the independent low power stations, but they weren't on the air on broadcast at the time at all. And we were. So we had the same homes they did besides Sports Channel Philadelphia or whatever, but we had actual broadcast stations. So it should have at least been equal, right? Oh, God, they did $6,000 last month. And what the fuck? And we did like 800 or whatever. 6,000. And then when Bill calls me and tells me, I said, wait a minute. I said, I've been getting a Soloflex fucking ad, brochure, video, whatever the fuck they're sending out this package. I thought it just because we had the spot going. And I told Hildebrand the story, and he said, well, I got one too. And then we come to find out that Corluzzo, Dennis was still around, bless him at the time. And he said, I've been getting one addressed to Dick Corluzzo. And we come to find, because Hildebrand was from Pennsylvania, right? And Dennis in New Jersey. We come to find out that everybody in the periphery of that Philadelphia, New Jersey, Northeast, or anybody that would be in anybody's address book, all you needed was an address to send this shit, right? And people actually had people's street addresses back in those days. Everybody had been getting Soloflex brochures. Paul E. had somebody calling over and over everybody in their address book requesting, hi, this is Brian Last from, fucking 86, the fucking fuck you street. And so I said, God damn it. He's a fucking evil genius. I said, two can play at this game, Brian. The team is in need. I'm talking to Hildebrand, right? I said, get your address book out, boy. He said, what? I said, start calling and telling them who the fuck you are and where the fuck you live and make us some money. If they can do it, we can do it too, right? What's good for the tit is good for the tat. So Brian, he sits down with his address book and he calls up. And the first one, he says he's whoever the fuck he is. He lives wherever the fuck he lives. And I'd love the information on this. Boom. He hangs up. And then he calls again. He does a second one. And he tells him who he is and where he lives. And he'd like that. Boom. And as he's working his way down, he's still in the A's, right? In the address book. He calls up again, and the third call, the woman said, didn't I just talk to you? and Hildebrand, my God, he shit himself. He's humming.
See, that's the thing. You said Heyman had someone do it. It may have been Paul himself.
They obviously had this thing worked out. I just gave Brian some homework, right? So he said, he hung up and he called me, I'm scared. I said, you haven't committed any fucking actionable fraud. Never mind. We can't do it. We can't be crooked. It's not within us. But that was the Soloflex deal. And he was financing a good part of ECW with fucking ordering Soloflex. Probably never printed so many brochures and made so many videos in their life.
All right, it's Tuesday. We make a demand from Vince and Linda, and then we get some money from them. And then Wednesday, we spend all day calling Soloflex.
Soloflex.
And then on Thursday, we order some weight gainer and other stuff from the other commercials.
But anyway, what was the subject of that? Oh, it was Don.
Don LaPrey.
Don. Well, R.I.P. Don.